Alright guys, so usually on the channel we break down the latest practices, but in today's one I wanted to talk about how I feel about the Chargers so far this summer, because at the end of the day, the game in Brazil against the Chiefs is less than a month away. That's a massive game, of course, taking on a divisional rival, and after the Chargers won 11 games last season, it seems like this is the perfect time to take the division, to have the AFC playoffs, of course, come through Los Angeles. So we're just going to talk about today how I feel. We'll go into every single unit, so offense, defense, special teams, things like that, and let's just dive into it. So we'll start off with the offense. I don't think there's much to say about Justin Herbert. I mean, it's Justin Herbert. In terms of the running back position, though, Najee Harris has obviously not been practicing. He hasn't played in the preseason, and that's opened up opportunities for some of these other guys. And Kamani Vidal is interesting because with how Rocket Sanders has looked in the preseason, he's, to me, clearly been the best running back of the three, talking about Sanders, Vidal, and Haskins. Haskins feels like a lock to make the roster because of his work on special teams, but in terms of Vidal, it's very difficult for me to say that he should be ahead of Sanders. And the Chargers obviously aren't carrying all of these back, so someone's going to have to be the odd man out. And I think it's Vidal, if I'm being completely honest with you. In terms of the receiving position, Lad McConkey is mostly going to work out of the slot. He wants to be both an outside and inside receiver. Same thing with Keenan Allen. He's basically equal on the outside as he is on the inside, so those guys are kind of interchangeable. And then you've got Trey Harris and Keandre Lambert-Smith. One of those guys is going to be left out of the starters because you've got certainly Quentin Johnston's going to start on the outside, even though Johnson, there's so much that I could say about him. Drops has been an issue. Certainly his release off of the line, but I think he's had a good camp, at least a lot better than his last camp. And he also is always going to be a threat down on the goal line because of his size and things like that. So it's going to be Lad in the slot. And then Quentin Johnston's going to get one of the starting outside spots. And then you've got Keenan Allen, Trey Harris, and Keandre Lambert-Smith. I'd probably lean towards Keenan Allen just because of his chemistry with Justin Herbert. And I still think he has a lot in the tank. Last season he got hot late in the season, and that was with a bad scheme and bad, or not necessarily bad quarterback play. I don't think Caleb Williams was bad necessarily, but not what it needs to be. Like, it wasn't good enough. So yeah, I would certainly favor Keenan. I think he's a huge addition to the wide receiver room as well. Obviously, it sucks that Mike Williams retired, but once Harris and Lambert-Smith develop, then they'll be replacing him. But for now, you just got to get the best you can, and that would be Keenan Allen. Tight end is pretty self-explanatory. Will Dissly, Tyler Conklin. Dissly had a career year receiving last year. Conklin, of course, is a possession type of tight end. And then Oronde Gadsden is a receiver in, I guess, a tight end's body, if you want to put it that way. He had a couple of catches against the Saints. I think Gadsden is still developing. He's certainly the third string for a reason. And I think down the line he's going to be a weapon. He's had a really good camp, but for now, the veterans certainly have that place. And then fullback Scott Matlock. And then the offensive line is where things start to get super interesting because Trey Pipkins the third. You look at 2023. So in that season, Pipkins played more than 1,100 snaps at right tackle, and in his career, he's played nearly 3,000. You date back to just his earlier years as well. He's kind of moved around, so he should pretty comfortably be able to play right tackle. That's his best position. That's what he said. That's what Jim Harbaugh said the other day, a couple of days ago, to the media. Pipkins, obviously, he's not Rashawn Slater, but I think he's going to be able to hold his own. And Mekhi Becton's also on the line. So I'm not saying that I'm fully optimistic about the line. I've been giving it a lot of issues because it struggled last season and you lose Rashawn Slater. I'm just going to remain hopeful and just believe in Pipkins holding his own and Becton transforming the interior, and then also just having Amari and Hampton to sort of negate the lack of production, because when you have a really good running back, he can make a bad offensive line look good. Like, we saw that, if you guys saw the Broncos preseason game where their rookie, of course, RJ Harvey, I mean, he had one open lane on like 7 carries, and he still averaged nearly 4 yards per carry. So that's pretty impressive. So things like that. So Hampton certainly is a more talented running back than RJ Harvey. No offense to him. I mean, Hampton was a first round pick. Harvey was like a mid round pick, and even like I watched a lot of RJ Harvey at UCF and a lot of Amari Hampton at North Carolina, and he's just a much better back. Yeah, I do think that Amari Hampton is going to make a huge difference to this offense, no questions about it. And we spent most of the time on the offense. The defense is pretty simple. The special teams, same unit. Cameron Dicker kicking, J.K. Scott, who's got massive hang time punting, and then Darius Davis, the stud returner, going to be taking both the punt and the kick returns. Behind them is Haskins and McConkey, who both are very serviceable, very good as well. And then long snappers, Josh Harris. The defense, even though I think it's the best unit on this team, it gave up the fewest points in football last year. I think it's even better just because of the depth at D-line, going and getting Deshaun Hand in free agency. Of course, just getting Kyle Kennard in the draft, and Caleb Murphy has also emerged as what seems to be a lock as he's played first team reps with the special teams, and he's also been applying pressure and forced a fumble and things like that, so he's been good. Tuli Topolotu taking that next leap. Diane Henley, of course, looks like he's going to be an all-pro type of linebacker, wearing that green dot, of course, in the middle of the defense. And then the DB position is probably the most interesting because you've got Nico Reed, Eric Rogers, who have emerged. RJ Mickens, I thought, looked good against the Saints. Tony Jefferson continues to make plays. And Cam Hart, Tarheeb Still, who started last season. Derwin James, obviously, is going to play safety, and he's going to sort of move around. We'll see him up at the line of scrimmage. We'll see him back into coverage. He'll kind of do it all. And then Dante Jackson's had a good camp. Jaqueezi Bridges, haven't really heard much about him. He was a second-round pick. But I think he's got a lot of upside. He's a good athlete. And then Kendall Williamson as well, I thought looked good against the Saints. So the defense just from top to bottom is insanely deep. I think a lot of the guys who don't start could start for a lot of other teams. And the good news for the offense, they have to go up against the defense every single day. I think the defense will hold the Chargers against anyone in the AFC. If I'm being completely honest, the AFC to me is the tougher conference. I think it's just deeper. I know the Eagles are the best team, but I think the AFC was a deeper conference with just how loaded it is. The question to me is going to be just Trey Pipkins. It's going to be who sort of emerges as the wide receiver 2 behind Ladd McConkey. And then Justin Herbert in those big moments, can he make those plays? Because he hasn't done that so far early on in his career. I know he's been very limited with a lack of talent around him, but Herbert still, when the game's on the line, has to be at his best. And then also the run game is how effectively can the Chargers run the ball? Because last season they simply couldn't, especially against the better teams. They just kind of went away from it. And Greg Roman is known to be a coach who calls plays. He's supposed to be good at drawing up run plays, and I think with Harris and Hampton and the addition of Mekhi Becton, it will be a lot easier for him.